Fellas, welcome back. Life is a video game, and that is today's topic. It's a very simple mindset shift that is hopefully going to give you more hope towards your life. I'm 23 years old, and I started YouTube when I was around 20 years old. But when I was around 20 years old, I honestly thought life was over because I just wasn't ahead. And I had so much anxiety and so much stress and overthinking, thinking that I'm just nothing, that I should be way more and I should do more. And I don't know what I want and what's my purpose. But as you mature and as you try different things and as you go through things like this, you learn. And the biggest mindset shift that I've had now that I want to share with you is that life is a video game. We are in the preseason right now, boys. You might be 18 anywhere to 25, 26. We're in the preseason. We are in the season of building the foundations, of laying the foundations brick by brick for our future, for our 30s. Let me explain this further. When you start playing a video game, and I'm going to use this example because I've spent thousands of hours on games. When you start a video game like Skyrim or Diablo or Path of Exile, any really game that has progression, apart from first-person shooters, even first-person shooters, to be honest, the first few levels that your level 1 to 10, the first few missions, the first few hours of any game is exciting because it's a new game, but it's also very limiting. It's also it's whatever. It's like, it's a bit grindy, I'm killing chickens, I'm fighting, I'm doing the same thing, I'm collecting like random resources, I'm trying to manage everything and whatnot. You go through this and you level up and you level up. And after a few levels, more of the game unlocks. A new map, a new area, new missions, right? New items. Now, instead of when you were level 1 to 2, you've only got a bronze sword. Now when you're level 30, you've got a spell, you've got a mount, a horse, you've got 2 companions following you, and a sword and a bow. And guess what? You've also unlocked a few different abilities, and you're doing this crazy mission, and there's this new threat. That's what happens through the mid game, doesn't it? If you've ever played a Paradox game like Stellaris or Crusader Kings, the first few years is always building the foundations. Like Hearts of Iron 4 is a big, big example. For the first few years, you're building the foundations, you're, building connections, embarking on diplomacy and whatnot. And then 10, 20, 30 years later, in-game, is when the real shit starts, when great wars happen, when the Crusades come in, when the World War II breaks apart and you've got to fight and whatnot. That's exactly life, boys. We are in the preseason. We are in the season of building up ourselves so that by the time we're 30, we know what we want from life. We've come and developed our skill trees. We've come and acquired a high enough level so that we can actually start to enjoy the game now. This is when the real game starts. And when you're playing these video games, the real game isn't the first few missions. Again, it's all the introduction. The game has to teach you how to play it. It has to teach you the story. It has to tell you the history, the culture, how the game is supposed to be played until you get to the real crux of the game, the real story. What is the real mission? That's when shit becomes fun, man. And that's exactly life. When we're young, the biggest, I think, psyop was, you're young, make the most of your youth, have fun. I think that's a psyop. Because when you spend the start of the game having fun and doing nothing and acquiring nothing, by the time you get to the mid-game, you're going to be thwarted by other empires and other colonies and other players who have taken it a bit more seriously. But that doesn't mean you should be stressed about the preseason, because this is only the preseason. You are supposed to fail. You're not supposed to know what you want from life. That's the whole purpose. You're not supposed to know what kind of game, how you want to play the game, what kind of character you want to create, how it's going to turn out. You're not supposed to know any of this. Many times, if you've ever played Skyrim or Fallout, you've probably played the game 100 different times. It's the exact same fucking story, But the reason you played it 100 different times is every single time you tried a different character in a different playstyle. You did it a different way. Because the first time when you did it, you learned. And you were like, you know what? This time I'm going to play it as a sneaky archer thief. And the next time I'm going to play as a paladin healer with 5 companions. And the next time I'm going to go with the Stormcloaks and just become a rebel, a Viking who just ravages the land. But you wouldn't know about these possibilities, these opportunities, if you never learnt and played the game in the first place. And that's the preseason. We are only learning the kind of life we want to live when the real game starts at 30 years old. When we get to that point, when we're 30, we've looked back at all the things that we've tried, the different jobs we've tried, the different education paths we've gone through, how we failed, how we did this and we learned this and that by the time you're 30, you've matured enough, you know what you want from life, you're experienced. Now, you've also got the foundations. You've built a nice physique. You've been eating clean. You've been learning and educating. Hopefully you started a business or a career path that's going to be rewarding for you. And you've been building this during the preseason. You've been laying the foundations brick by brick. And now you're 30 years old. And now the real fun fucking begins. Right? You've got a bit of money. Now you can spend that money on more stuff, on more education, on more business results, on more career results, lifestyle design, right? You've spent the last 10 years from 18 to 30 years old planning how you want to live. Maybe you knew by the time you were 23 that you want to live in a country like Indonesia or Thailand. So you've been working and researching on all the ways and possibilities you can make that happen so that by the time you're 30, guess what? You've already got 2 villas or maybe a villa completely paid for because you invested when you were 26. Guess what? You've already applied for a digital nomad visa or you've become a digital nomad because you knew that's something you wanted to do. And you've built that in the preseason so that when you get to 30, you've got that villa, you've got the visa ready, you've got an online business ready, and you've got the maturity, the foundations physically and mentally and spiritually to now start the real game. Now start enjoying it. And don't be afraid of thinking, oh, I'm going to be old and whatnot. If you've been eating clean, you've been lifting, you've been staying healthy, you're going to be the youngest you've ever felt when you're 30. Honestly, the most energetic, the most composed, the most mature, and the most whole version of yourself. So don't worry about the preseason. Don't stress if, you're not a millionaire by tomorrow, because honestly, the people that go on the internet and say that to you are exceptions. They're the rarities. And I'm not saying that can't be you. It absolutely can. And guess what? If that is you, the game hasn't started yet. The game starts when you're 30, not when you're 26 and you're rich, not when you're 24 and you're rich. This is still the preseason. If you get rich tomorrow, this is the preseason. You cannot get comfortable. You still need to fail. You need to take that money that you made, if you did, and invest it more into yourself and your future and your lifestyle setup. You need to do more of that. So the game doesn't end. The game really begins when you're 30, not when you have $1 million at the age of 23, not when you're working for yourself by 25. No. Even if that doesn't happen, that's amazing because this again is the preseason. This is where we're building. This is where nobody's going to see the results. You're not even you. You're not going to see the results until you get to that age where you're 30 years old and you've matured and you're looking back and you're like, okay, I've got a great physique going for me. I've learned a bit of this language. I've learned a bit of Thai. I started a YouTube channel when I was 23 years old, and 7 years later, it's doing really well. I've got my online business. I'm mentally healthy. I look young, and I've, worked on my body and my physique in a way where now I look like a model at the age of 30. And guess what? I've got a modeling agency, and I've got my own online business, and I've bought a villa in Phuket, and now I've got an apartment in Bangkok, and this is where the game starts. This is where it all starts, but it all takes up to building to this point, the preseason. Again, even if you don't have the money to do that villa and the kind of thing, you've got the education, you've got the experience, you've got the know-how. You have become the person who can do that by the age of 30. And that's where it all starts. But we need to build up to that point. You cannot just waste your 20s and get to your 30s and do the preseason in your 30s to your 40s. You cannot. It cannot happen. Sure, it's never too late, but the preseason, the opportunity that we have where we can fail as much as we want, we can fuck up as much as we want, we can try anything because we don't have responsibility, we don't have a child, we don't have bills coming. This preseason is the biggest opportunity and we'll not get that ever again. Sure, you can restart when you're 30, 35, 40, 50, but it's going to be so much harder because now you've got people or things depending on you. But when you're young, you've got absolutely none of that. And so this is the moment to stuff up so that by the time you're 30, you don't have to stuff up and start life fresh anymore. You can start the game established with knowledge, with wisdom, and with a few, hopefully, assets, whether physical assets, mental assets through knowledge, or physical assets through your body, your villa, your digital assets, whatever it is, content, books, anything, just write, just do everything. When you're in the preseason, honestly, do everything. I used to write short novels, short stories. I went to university to become an engineer, a software engineer, and a game developer. I know how to do a bit of Unreal Engine, like all these different things that might seem irrelevant, but they're actually really relevant. Why? Because I know what I want. The only way I can know what I want is if I go on that discovery mission first to see if this is something I want or not. I have an idea, a very good idea about the life I want to live. 4 or 5 months spent in Australia during the summer, another 5-6 months, whatever, spent in Southeast Asia in the summer. Come back every few winters here and there because it's nice to break it up, back to Australia during the winter, go up to the mountains, whatnot. That's kind of the lifestyle I want to live, but I knew about this and I found this out because I traveled and I took that risk. It's going to be so much harder to travel when you're 30 years old and you've got a rental and a job and a career that you're deep into. But when you're in the preseason, that money, instead of spending on going out and drinking, on playing more video games or doing random shit or buying a car, spend it on experiences, spend it on this kind of stuff. Absolutely. This will all build the foundations for your Rome in the future, for your kingdom and for your castle in the future. And that's where it all leads to. Our 30s, that's when the real game starts. So don't beat yourself up over it. I'm not telling you to slow down. I'm not telling you to take it easy and to rest. What I'm telling you is don't become your worst enemy just because you're not where you're supposed to be. Of course you're not where you're supposed to be. That's the whole purpose of the preseason. That's the whole purpose of training. You're not where you're supposed to be, but you're getting there. That's the whole purpose. So don't become self-destructive. That's where this video comes from. I'm not telling you to slow down and take it easy and rest and play more video games. No, I'm saying that if you don't do this, if you don't think about it this way, if you apply all this pressure on yourself and you just grind and hustle and you do all of these things without thinking about this mindset about your 30s and building in investments, you become your worst enemy. You start to judge yourself. You start to berate yourself. Or you know what? You accept your reality. You accept and you give up. You're like, fuck it. I'm 23. I haven't done anything. I'm nothing. I give up. But bro, you're 23. You're not supposed to be anything right now. That's the whole purpose. That's the beauty of it. This is where you're supposed to be nobody. Become no one. So this is something I've been repeating to myself recently. I am nobody, and if I am nobody, I can be anything and everything all at once. Isn't that true? Because if I am something, I cannot be the opposite of that thing, but I can not also be the cancellation of that thing. Does that mean, if I'm a good person, I can't be bad. If I'm tall, I can't be short. Those are very absolute examples, right? But if I was to say like things like, you know, I I am this kind of person, therefore I don't do this. You're labeling yourself. You're limiting yourself from the opportunity. You're small dicking yourself with self beliefs. I can't do YouTube because of I can't do this. I don't do this. I'm not, I'm a shy person, so I don't really talk to people. No, become nobody. I am nobody. And when you are nobody, you can transform into anybody that you want. And that's what we want in our preseason. We want to be everybody in our preseason. The clown, the guy who wastes time. It's important to go through that. The person who struggles, the person who wins, the jacked guy, the ugly guy. Become everything, be everything. And so when you're 30 years old, when you get to that point, and again, I'm only saying 30 because it's a nice number, and men mature at 28 and whatnot, and life gets a bit more serious when you're 30. I'm only saying that for that reason. Otherwise, there's no magic number, right? But when you get to that point where you're 30, you know what you want. And knowing is power, because the more you know, the more power you have over the direction of your life and control over your life, honestly. So boys, don't give up. Don't give up. Absolutely don't give up. But don't become your worst enemy thinking to yourself, I should be more successful. Why is this person making money more than me when he's 18 years old? Who knows, bro? You might be 26 making no money, and you might look at a 21-year-old making $10,000, $20,000 a month, but the guy's still a virgin, for example. Or he doesn't know how to defend himself, or he can't hold a conversation, or he's a liar, for example, or he's very insecure. But here you are at 26, sure, you're not making money and you're not successful, but you're level 37. Your charisma is at 56 out of 100. Your physique is at a 47 out of 100. You've been eating healthy. Well, this guy hasn't. Because the 21-year-old has so much money, he just spends it on bullshit. Whereas because you haven't had so much money, you've been eating clean. You've been paying attention to what you eat. You don't buy junk food. You've developed the skill of not spending it on bullshit. Do you see? It's not just about the money. It is the holistic development of character. But remember, we are in the preseason. We are just building the bricks, brick by brick, for a Rome tomorrow. Hope this video was helpful. I hope you found it inspiring and educational, and I really hope it gave you some hope, because I've been my own worst enemy, man. Like, I say it like this: life is challenging is enough. Why do you have to be your own worst enemy? Why add that extra challenge to yourself? Why berate yourself? Why put yourself down? And that comes through unrealistic expectations of judging yourself, comparing yourself to others, and why am I not jacked enough? Why am I not strong enough? Why am I not making more money like this 17-year-old on YouTube does? Why? But relax, you're on your own journey. You are on your own journey. And you're not trying to become like me. You're not trying to become like other people. You're trying to become the best version of who you want to be. But that is the whole point. Your preseason is figuring out who that dream person and that dream lifestyle is, and building the foundations to get there. The foundations are very simple. You educate yourself. You do things daily that take you to that dream person, that dream reality. You invest financially in your education or in physical, digital, mental assets. You do these things. You try different business models. You make friends. Who knows? A friendship, a network. You might meet somebody whose parents are a real estate developer who own multiple properties around the world. And guess what? 10 years later, you're best friends, and you just get the most amazing deals, all on the hottest spots in all around Sydney. These are all possibilities. But we need to open up ourselves to the fact that our 18 to 30 years old, that 12-year gap, is just all about exploring all single possibilities and finding out what we want from our dream life and our dream person, our dream character.